Do you remember the Diary of Wimpy kid books? Maybe the movies? Of course you do, at least if you're around my age. Every kid had a copy of at least one of the books laying around on their desk and their lunch tables. Whenever it was time to do book reports, at least a quarter of the class clamored to the library to pick up one of the colorful paperbacks with weird grease stains and tears that were left from the last 8 or other kids that borrowed it before you. Do you remember how great it felt to be that age and read about someone who understands your childhood struggles? Do you remember the first book? Yeah, you do. Book 2? Yeah, of course. Book 3? Yeah, I love that one. Book 4? Yeah, I read that one the most. Book 5? Yeah, a little. How about books 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and did you know that the 17th book is about to be released? No, you don't remember the other books and probably didn't read anything past 6 or 7. And you definitely didn't know we're on book 17 as of October 2022. I didn't, and I was such a humongous fan of the series. I watched and owned the movies. I reread every book every year. I had the do-it-yourself book and the movie diary one too. And then I remember buying book 6 when it came out, and book 7, and book 8, and then book 9. After that, I forgot to check in with the series. I looked back and I didn't think I was too far behind, and that one day I'll buy the 3 or 4 books I was missing and get caught up and call it a day. Except the last time I read a new book from the series was in 2014 when I was in 8th grade. Now I've graduated high school a few years ago. I rewatched the original Zach Gordon trilogy and had the sudden realization that I have missed 7 years worth of books from the series, and trust me, when I found that out, that made a whole lot more sense. So then a whole lot of questions came into mind. What the happened to my baby face, and how many of the books did I have in my collection still? But after I got over my mental crisis, I started to ask actual questions about the book series itself, which made me want to make this video documenting my experience. These are the questions that I wanted answered. 1. Is there actual character development for Greg, or does he stay a sociopath? 2. Does the writing hold up for 17 books, or does it start getting stale? 3. Do the books try to tell more mature and compelling stories as the series goes on? And 4. Most importantly, does Greg ever actually move on to high school? Now that that's out of the way, I just want to clarify that this is a documentary commentary, not a vlog. So if you're expecting me to hold the camera up to my face every 5 seconds screaming while I film a rotting corpse hanging from a tree, you might as well click off this video now, and while you're at it, go get some professional help. Anyways, let's get to the real reason why you're here, because I'm sure you're asking these questions too. Let's get this started. I'm going to spend a little bit more time on book 1 for reasons you'll see later, and I'm going to gloss a bit over books 2 through 4 since I'm positive everyone clicking on this video has read those ones more, and I will elaborate more on other books that are farther in the series as we progress forward. But on with the one that started it all, a true phenomenon. I have read this one realistically probably close to 25-ish times over the years. I have a vague memory of reading it for the first time. I headed down to my local library and I was on a wait list because every kid my age on this planet wanted to read it all at the same time. And I had to wait close to a month and a half to get it. And when I finally got my hands all over this grimy book that's been run through, I didn't care. I read the absolute out of it. Now, how are my opinions about this book as a full-grown adult? I absolutely loved it still, even though I remember everything that happens. The jokes still made me laugh as well, even with the foresight I had for the books going in. One of the things I really noticed that I did notice as a kid, but truly appreciate now that I'm older, it's the sophisticated writing that is being put forth by Jeff, and how not only does it show the true intellect of Greg, but it does not speak down to its adolescent audience. And as the books progress forward, the writing becomes extremely important when it comes to answering my bigger questions. Now, the main thing to notice in terms of bigger picture aspects in this book is Greg's sociopathic tendencies. They are extremely high in quantity of examples. The one that really cemented it for me was after Greg and Riley bumped into those teenagers on Halloween night and ran into his grandma's place. They ended up toilet papering her house, and Greg says, "I do feel a little bad," because it looked like it was going to take a long time to clean up. But on the bright side, grandma's retired, so she probably didn't have anything planned for today anyway. I know there are better examples, but something about that just really stuck with me, and it felt like after that moment, his actions just got worse going forward. It's weird and fascinating because he's a protagonist who isn't a good person, but we care about him because we see the struggles he faces at home, which will be a bigger aspect I will touch upon at some point. Beyond character traits, looking at the timeline of events, this book is the only book in the whole series to take place within an entire school year. And as I read more and more to find an answer to our high school question, I was genuinely surprised at how tight and planned out the continuity to the Diary of a Wimpy Kid books flowed book to book. Now, when it comes to maturity and character growth, there isn't a whole lot here, but there is some. This is one of the reasons why and I'm sure most people prefer the films over the books, because there is a genuine change to Greg in that first film especially. Throughout the film, there are consequences for his actions in a larger way than the first book. But I would say there is a minor character growth at the end that plays out similarly to the movie, but it does not feel like Greg learned any lessons, and that's apparent in the next book. Roderick rules. I gotta say, I was pretty disappointed reading this one again. Don't get me wrong, it was hilarious and had me laughing from start to finish, but there wasn't a true narrative, and it was frustrating me because there could have been one. I knew it wouldn't be what the film version was, which, by the way, out of the 3 movies, the first film is the closest to the material out of all of them. Even with them not doing a whole emotional plotline about their bonding, they did explain at the beginning that Roderick had an embarrassing video of Greg accidentally going into the ladies' bathroom at his grandpa's retirement center and is trying to keep Roderick pleased so he doesn't expose it. But the problem here is that it doesn't end up being the plot of the book and goes nowhere with the storyline, and I honestly kept forgetting about it because it was only mentioned about 1 or 2 times before it becomes important at the end when Roderick eventually does release it. As for character development, there truly was none in this book. But when it comes to finding some type of chronology in the timeline, this book is the first to truly pay attention to the fact that Greg only has 3 years in middle school. So if 1 whole year was already spent, then Jeff has a task to keep it going by shortening the amount of months each book has to go through. So this book starts in September and ends in November, which the books end up having the tendency to pick up on the same month that the last book ended to keep the timeline in order. So this gives some hope that Jeff is attempting to keep the timeline in middle school as long as possible and give a reason for why it's taking so long to get to high school. I had a good morning in which I decided what better way than to go outside and enjoy a book about a preteen boy who's in his underwear on the cover to start my day. On a serious note, whenever I was out driving, I would keep the cover flipped over on my passenger side seat because I didn't need that kind of attention on me. Anyways, I really like reading outside because I feel like I can focus more on my book instead of being distracted by whatever technology surrounds me. Plus, it just has such a great feel to it, feeling the wind breeze by, having the birds chirp all around you. It's a good feeling, I highly recommend it. I also thought it would be an appropriate setting for me since the whole plot of this book is that Greg doesn't do much besides stay at home and screw things up, so his dad wants to send him to military school to whip him into shape. This book truly had me looking into Susan and Frank a hell of a lot more. Definitely helps with understanding Greg more as a character, and as we go on, there is one book in the series especially that I believe does the best job at explaining why Greg does not attempt to do anything special or go above and beyond, and all the books pretty much laid this out, including this one, so I'll just state it now. 1. His parents are only supportive of the things Greg is interested in if they are interested in it. 2. They do not make an attempt to actually understand their kids. 3. Susan is extremely overprotective, hypercritical, controlling, and manipulative. 4. Frank has serious anger issues and is always forcing lifestyles onto his kids, which in return makes them resent him. To be honest with you, I don't really like Greg's parents. In fact, I would go as far to say that they're parents, and they are the main reason for why their children are so fucked up. I will give credit that they have their moments, but it does not save them for me. But I digress. Even though Greg, Roderick, and Manny are all different in personalities, they have very similar faulty traits, such as sociopathic behavior, lack of motivation, and complete selfishness. I will elaborate more as I do believe there are better examples to pull from that add more to why Greg is the way he is, but I think the main thing to focus on right now regarding the last straw itself is the fact that Greg and Roderick do not open up to their parents because they disregard almost everything that comes out of their mouth, and that is why there is so much hostility within the family. I decided to take a little break from all the reading so I can hang out with my good friend Kevin for a bit, which were kind of like the real life Greg and Riley, except I replaced Greg's sociopathicness with a whole lot of complaining. And Kevin is a mama's boy, but it's not cringe. Also, me and Kevin's dad have a similar relationship to Greg and Mr. Jefferson's relationship, but it's all good because I still love that DILF. I thought it would be cool to flex my skateboarding skills for you guys, but to be frank, I think my skills are a little too good. I would feel pretty bad if someone saw this and got jealous and gave up on their future career as a professional skateboarder, but go ahead and watch at your own discretion.
I'm always in the camera every. I'm always the cameraman. There you go.
I decided reading in my backyard was not enough to satisfy my outdoor reading experience, so I hiked up a huge hill and found a nice bench at the top. Right when I sat down, it started raining, which was funny because I was in the middle of reading a scene where the Heffley family took a trip to a water park that took a while, and then when they got there, it began to rain. Since I had my camera and most importantly my book with me, I began sprinting down the hill to get back to my car. But there was so much cow poop everywhere, I kept jumping over it, but the trail was getting all muddy, so at some point I couldn't tell what was shit and what was mud. It made me think about how in freshman year of high school, I convinced my whole friend group to do cross country for sophomore year, and they all agreed, and then I moved to another city and they ended up doing it without me. But the way I see it is that they probably needed it more than me. Well, okay, in this moment I probably did need that cross country experience because I was f***ed up afterwards, but at the end of the day, I really helped out my friends. In fact, I even inspired one of them to become a professional dancer, and that's all thanks to me. But anyways, Dog Days has always been one of my favorites of the books to reread, especially during the summer, for obvious reasons. I think this book is the first glimpse of character development for Greg, and the way Greg writes, which is in essence the way he thinks and speaks, is honestly pretty different compared to the last 3 entries. He still has his ego and sociopathic nature, but it's tamed down and he keeps it to himself way more. In the other books, he pretty much just says whatever comes to his mind a whole lot more, and in this one, he kind of keeps it to himself. The changes are there. It's subtle, but it is there. It expands more on Greg's relationship with his parents and how he feels like nothing he does can please them, so he goes as far as tricking them so they can finally get off his ass. An example is one they use in the movie adaptation where Greg plays video games all day and then runs to the backyard, jumps in front of the sprinklers real quick, so when his dad comes home he looks all sweaty and shit. The book also had Riley and Greg have a split in their friendship, which set up the next book perfectly. This book is one of the first to have a major consequence for Greg because of his actions and selfish mindset. I woke up today with the suitcase already packed and ready to go. I was heading out on a trip to Nevada to see my parents, so I can clear my mind and get some more reading taken care of. On the start of my drive, I saw these huge, awesome clouds, but it turns out it was actually just a bunch of pollution that merged together from all the factories in the nearby area. But besides that, the drive up there was beautiful and all, but it was really hard to enjoy when I needed to piss halfway there and I didn't want to stop for any bathrooms. Not that there were any I could find if I wanted to. But I got there and relieved myself and finished Dog Days, which made me feel a little nostalgic, and I threw up the Dog Days movie on the TV. Once that was done, I decided to start with what was my personal favorite of the books, The Ugly Truth. I decided to learn guitar since my dad gave me one a year ago and I haven't used it, and I kept promising myself that I would pick it up, so I finally did. And I learned about the frets, each name of the strings, and 2 chords, E minor and E sus. And not to brag or anything, but I'm kind of already a fucking beast. After I had a glorious guitar session, I got a knock at the front door from someone telling me to stop playing because I sucked and kept waking up their baby. So I decided why not open up The Ugly Truth. And after reading it, it was still my favorite one so far, and it had to do with 2 things. 1, the book dealt with more mature subject matter. 2, there were major consequences for Greg and his friendship with Rowley. The main plot is that since Rowley and Greg have split up, Greg is trying to find new friends, but nothing is working out. And then on top of that, he has started a new school year and is doing this whole educational course on puberty, which is making Greg a little scared about growing up, while his family is pressuring him into figuring out what he's gonna do with his life. As a kid reading it when it came out, I felt the same way, and I still do. I think you never truly stop being scared of growth, but the book is talking about accepting it, and I appreciate the more mature themes they dip their toes into. And it has some more character growth for Greg, and now he has to self-reflect on the way he was treating Rowley and how deep down inside he needs him. But my only gripe is that it's a little too subtle for me, and I wish they expanded upon these themes more heavily. Cabin Fever is one of my favorites for sure. I love how it takes place within a season, and half the book takes place within a week or so to keep the timeline stretched out as long as possible, which is not a bother to me as long as there is a good story to tell within your setting, which is exactly what is done here. It is close to Christmas, and then a huge blizzard comes into Pleasantville and has everyone stuck inside their house, which leads to a bunch of shenanigans within the household. This book takes a closer look at how dysfunctional this family is for real. You see how Greg's parents don't care for his interests and tear his ideas apart, and honestly how little they pay attention to him. His mom multiple times throughout the book expresses her dislike over the things he is interested in. There is an entire scene where she goes off on a younger Greg who was having fun making his own picture books and was proud to show them to her. And she gets mad at him, telling him that he is plagiarizing when he is supposed to be something like 6 or 7. There is another scene where Greg finds out she faked an autograph of this author Greg really likes because she didn't want to stand in a line, and then faked it when he went to go use the bathroom. There are an extensive number of examples, not only in this book, but others where Greg talks about the horrible gifts he's given, how Manny literally gets everything he wants. It's very much shown that they don't care about his likes and frankly don't even know his likes and interests. Susan is redeemed a bit by the end because she ends up getting the autograph from the author for real this time, which was a little nice character development for her. I want to take a second to express that I do know that Susan at the end of the day does care for her kids, but it's not done in a healthy way. And even though her film counterpart is similar, there are some major differences. Number one being that the film version actually does want to know what's wrong with her kids and truly does attempt to know them and help them. Whereas the book version makes it an opportunity to chastise her kids instead of actually finding a solution to their problems. Number two, the film version is just not manipulative. The book one is. She guilt trips everyone in the family constantly and is always seeking power over everyone, especially Frank. Which, Frank is not off the hook. It seems like he just hates his family. He is definitely depressed. You can clearly see that. When the blizzard hits, it is alluded to and theorized by Greg that Frank rented out a hotel to stay away from them before the blizzard got worse because he knew they would all have to be stuck together. Now with Greg, he gets some major character development by the end of this book. Him and Rowley were attempting to put some posters for a holiday bazaar they wanted to make, and when they were doing that, it began to rain and the color dye from the posters stained this brick wall at their school. An adult saw them do this and they thought they were gang members throwing up graffiti. Near the end of the book, Rowley's stupid ass sent an anonymous note saying, "Me and Greg heavily vandalized the school out of guilt," but he didn't put his own name, which really makes you question if Rowley is that big of a dumb or if he's learning a thing or two from Greg. Anyways, Greg doesn't snitch out Rowley and actually explains the whole situation to Vice Principal Roy, who understands the situation and just has Greg clean the dye off the wall. That truly shows Greg's growth a lot compared to the first book. I just got back home yesterday from Nevada and decided to take a chill pill with the reading, but I started back up today with the third wheel, and I think this was the first complete misfire so far. The plot wasn't too much of a jumbled mess, but it simply wasn't interesting, and the worst crime is that it wasn't even funny to me. I feel like Jeff got cold feet over the past 2 books and wanted to go back to something less mature and more simple, but it just doesn't work for this one. I didn't really find anything good about this book, to be honest with you, and this is kind of the first step in answering the question of, do they end up getting stale? Because this one definitely felt stale. The main issue I had with this book is the fact that its only purpose is to set up the next book, which is hard luck. This book, man. I'm gonna need to take a good minute to explain this one because so far, this is the most important book in the series when it comes to our main questions. The main plot is that at the end of the third wheel, Rowley gets a girlfriend, and now when we pick up with this book, he isn't spending any time with Greg anymore. It's not that they stopped being friends, they just gone their separate ways for the time being. Then Greg stumbles upon a magic 8-ball in Roderick's room, and he is so lonely he grows a sentimental attachment to it. And now this is his only true friend. It is honestly really sad. Now Greg is in the same predicament as the ugly truth, but here's the reason it doesn't feel redundant. This one makes all the themes of the book the central focus and plot. So far, Hard Luck is the most focused book out of any of them. It gives you a central problem at the very start, and every aspect of the book revolves around it and the consequences this problem has set up. Even one major plot point that runs throughout the book that isn't connected to Greg trying to live a life without his best friend is profoundly important to the themes of the book, which are learning that people grow apart as they get older. And the most important one, as you get older, you have to learn how to make tough decisions on your own because sometimes other people won't be there. Throughout the book, Greg is so scared to find other friends because deep down inside he knows how unlikable he is and how Rowley is the only one who tolerates his behavior. You can see a bit of guilt in his actions. He's scared of talking to his parents about it because they will just brush him off or try to make it an excuse to lecture him about what he's failing at in his life. In fact, a bit of that does end up happening. Greg was keeping the fact that Rowley isn't spending much time with him and how that's affecting him away from his parents. And when Susan finds out, she basically tells him just to get over it and that friends don't last. Once again, no real motive to understand or help. So it makes a lot of sense when he turns to this 8-ball for not just guidance, but genuine emotional support. The next thing I will talk about before I summarize the ending and its importance to our sought out questions is the secondary plot that has some significant character development for Greg. When Greg's great grandmother died, she lost a ring that was hers and it was worth a lot of money. The whole family from Susan's side was tearing themselves apart trying to find it, and all it was doing was causing harm to the family. It is later theorized that Greg's great-grandma accidentally put the ring in a plastic Easter egg for a yearly egg hunt. Now, to get to the end, Greg was trying to use the magic 8-ball for a test but dropped it and broke it, and all the liquid spilled out. He threw it over his grandma's fence into her backyard. Then he finds out that Rowley's girlfriend broke up with him after she got back with her ex without telling him. In fact, it's pretty much stated that she used Rowley to make her ex jealous. Rowley, rightfully so, was distraught and getting all depressed and Greg wasn't sure if he should go and talk to Rowley. It's alluded that Greg is scared of the rejection he might get if he tries. There's those signs of guilt I was talking about. He decides he should go to his grandma's and find the 8-ball and get one last question out of it. When he kneels down to pick it up, something catches his eye. He sees a plastic Easter egg hidden under a pile of wood. He picks it up and rattles it. He knows it's the ring the whole family has been fighting over. He looks at the magic 8-ball and realizes he has to make a serious decision. But the thing he realizes the most is, the magic 8-ball might be good for helping out with the little decisions, but I figure the big ones are up to me. He chooses to hide the ring for the sake of his family. As he says, I remembered what Mom said would happen if someone actually found the ring. And even though I could probably sell it for good money, it's not worth breaking the family over it. And then Greg goes to school the next day, where he finds Rowley sitting by himself, and all he does is come up to him and be there. So at lunch today, I went to the back of the line where Rowley was sitting and asked him if he wanted to come sit with me. And 5 seconds later, it was just like old times. I know Mom's always saying friends come and go and family is forever, and maybe that's true. I'm sure me and Rowley will get into another fight somewhere down the road, and then we'll go through this drama all over again. But for now, we're good. Boom! Character development, bitch! Seriously though, I got a little teary-eyed. It felt very earnest and real. The whole book felt that way from start to finish. It was as if Jeff was just tired of hearing people calling him a sociopath. It felt like Jeff was trying to tell a compelling character journey for Greg, and there wasn't any pullback this time, and I truly appreciated it. I appreciated it so much that it became my favorite book in the series so far. It answered, does Greg mature? Yes, he certainly does. Do the books mature? Yup. And so far, besides one book, the writing hasn't gotten stale. If anything, it's gotten better. Now, is Greg going to high school? Here's the thing. This is the last book in the timeline that he's supposed to be in middle school. I will get into the timeline once we get to book 10, and we'll even talk about an aspect of this book that I did not bring up yet, but there will be some type of answer soon to that question, since that is the biggest one I feel like most people have in their mind for this series. I was scared that after reading Hard Luck, it would peak and everything would start going downhill, but no. The Long Haul came out and surprised the shit out of me. This is actually the last book in the series I read before my sabbatical with the franchise. I didn't remember much from it besides the fact that it was a road trip book. I gotta say, there is no character development or deeper themes at all present in this book, but fuck man, this is the funniest one in the whole series so far. I was belly laughing like a fucking maniac, and it has such an anxiety-inducing atmosphere that genuinely had my heart beating page to page. This book's biggest strength is how genuinely clever and brilliant the events flow together. Each action causes an effect, and it only keeps getting worse and worse. The sheer wildness this book evokes had my head spinning that we're on the 9th book in the series and it's at its most cleverest. Very damn good read, and it is currently my second favorite in the series so far. Additionally, I did end up checking out the movie adaptation for the first time. I kept putting it off because it looked horrendous, and then when people started memeing the shit out of it, I really didn't want to associate with that thing on any level. But I decided to let my curiosity win and I checked it out. And my quick review is... it's bad. Don't watch it. Watching your family getting point blank executed in front of you would be a funner time than watching this movie. But anyways, on to the next book. Once again, Jeff is on a roll. Old School is probably the second most focused book in the whole franchise so far. This book's plot has a fun build-up and is kind of like two books in one, but has a very seamless transition into the second half that feels natural and flows together perfectly. The first half of the book is about Pleasantville coming together thanks to Greg's mom to do a weekend where the whole town puts away their electronics and go outside and do things as a community. That puts Greg and Riley in a compromising situation where they have to figure out what kind of fun things they can do together. Frank decides to be chill for once and give Greg and Riley $20 to start a lemonade stand since the whole town is walking around their neighborhood. But they're too stupid to know how to do that, which had me dying. This leads to a bunch of shenanigans that made me laugh a whole lot. The jokes in this one were just so damn funny. Some other stuff happens later in the book where Greg's grandpa ends up crashing Frank's car and it's up. Greg ends up getting scared that his dad will blame it on him, and he sneaks off to a week-long school camping trip to avoid his dad's wrath. This is when the second half of the story starts. Greg ends up trying to do a bunch of camp stuff and he isn't good at it until he uses a cheat book that his grandpa gave him before the trip. He also has to deal with all the kids losing their mind over some urban legend the kids are afraid of called Celia Scratch, who is some humanoid creature that's supposed to stalk the woods. By the end of the book, Frank has to come over to chaperone Greg's camping group after Riley's dad got sick and had to head back home. You end up finding out that Frank went to the same camp when he was in middle school, and he's the one that started the Celia Scratch rumor to scare the kids away from a hidden shack that was used by park rangers. Frank wanted to keep it to himself so he wouldn't have to share the bathroom with the others and have his own space. Greg discovers it and keeps it a secret between the both of them, giving them a nice little thing to bond over. There is minor character development. You see the changes in how Greg speaks and writes. You see how he's thinking about others besides himself. You see that he keeps his bad emotions in check. When it comes to being stale, it is definitely not. Another standout favorite of mine so far. Now, the most important thing about this book is the timeline. This book has the biggest implications to the Diary of a Wimpy Kid events and what it means about Greg getting into high school. So I haven't had a chance to explain the full timeline yet, so let me do that for you as simply as I can. Book 1 is the only book that takes place within a whole school year, taking place between September through June. This clearly and obviously is supposed to be the first year of middle school, so that would be 6th grade. Books 2 and 3 take place in 7th grade, with book 4 taking place the summer before 8th grade. So those books would take place between September through July the following year. Then books 5 through 8 take place during his 8th grade year, also known as his last year of middle school, with book 9 taking place during the summer before 9th grade, also known as his first year of high school. These books take place between September through June. So when does book 10 take place? It starts in September, which means a new school year, so does he move on to high school? No, he doesn't. And if you weren't already certain of that fact, on page 15, Greg states while depicting a scene of him and Rowley in the cafeteria, and to be honest with you, I feel like I've been in middle school forever. So this begs the question, why doesn't Jeff allow him to go into high school, and will he ever allow him to? I think I found some answers. I was digging around on YouTube for interviews with him, and this question has been brought up for years, and I know this is going to sound crazy, but I don't think Jeff actually knows what his stories are. He keeps talking about these books as cartoons, and that you wouldn't want to see Mickey Mouse grow up and get gray hairs. He also says that it's just fun to keep Greg in middle school. Here's the problem. This isn't a cartoon. Sure, there are drawings, but it is explicitly told that this is a child who is drawing his daily life in a journal. There is clearly continuity, books set up other books, characters have growth, specific events are constantly called back to books later. In fact, the continuity is so important that Jeff himself keeps a detailed track of all of it and doesn't try to overstep it. Mickey Mouse doesn't have a continuity. Most cartoons don't have a continuity. Think of things like Family Guy. Even though I know there is a slight continuity, they will gladly ignore it when they want to. So most cartoons don't have character growth or call back to other things because they aren't serialized in the way something like Rick and Morty is. So he is completely contradicting the statements he made, and to be honest, it did make me mad. I think there is no reason not to move him to high school and grow up with the audience. Jeff said he got inspired by Harry Potter and he wanted to make a book series where there are kids as the main characters, but they are not heroic and are deeply flawed in egotistical or unintellectual ways. Anyways, we'll have to hope and see if he ever decides to make that move or not, because for something that is pretty grounded in reality, it's kind of weird for this not to happen. Also, I know Greg is an unreliable narrator, but the fantasy element is getting a little too goofy because in the long haul, Manny wins a pig and it's kept by the Heffleys, and Greg depicts the pig walking around and doing human-like things, so who knows what Jeff is cooking up. Which, by the way, once again, the pig shows up for the next foreseeable books, which establishes a continuity. So I don't know, man. Double Down was a big disappointment for me at first. I learned to really like it and took some time to truly take it in. The supposed plot, as told by the description, is that Greg and Rowley try to make a scary movie. That made me have the biggest grin on my face since I want to be a future filmmaker and have done a lot of filming when I was in high school and middle school, making cringe projects with my friends left and right, trying to drag them into my vision, pleading with them that this is going to be huge. So I was super excited to see what Jeff would make with this type of plot. Yeah, that's not the plot though. The whole aspect of the book doesn't happen till the last 27 pages of the book. So obviously I wasn't the biggest fan at first, but when I sat down and tried to think about what the book really was about, I really liked it a lot. It was comedy gold and had me laughing nonstop, especially as you got closer towards the end. What the actual plot is it's Greg trying his best to find some form of expression for himself. And as he's trying to find a hobby he enjoys, he keeps doubling down on the trouble he causes while doing so. It feels like every time he's trying to do something he enjoys, it just ends up in chaos, causing him not to want to try at anything. And this book, more than any of the other ones, definitely dives deeper into how his parents treat him, about the ideas and interests he has, and how they snuff them out. There is a major character moment for Greg where he describes these nightmares he's been having and how he found a book in his mom's closet about dreams and what they mean. He states, "Apparently the one about the tail means I'm ashamed of something in my past. And the dream about the pirate means I'm stressing out about not being a good enough friend. The other night I had a dream that all my teeth were loose. And apparently that one's about a fear of getting older, which kind of makes sense." Speaking about making sense, that actually gives the book a lot of more context because the whole book is Greg desperately trying to find something he's good at. And I think it's stemming from a place of fear of not being able to have this grand life he spoke about all the way back in the opening of the first book. This fear that he is expected to find something to do before he gets too old. The fear of simply growing up. The Getaway. This book took a dip in quality. I like the concept of it though, which is the Heffley family decide to go on vacation to a tropical resort, and of course, chaos ensues. I like the first 50-ish pages a lot. There was a lot of anxiety-inducing moments, and it was a ton of fun watching them try to make this flight in the middle of a Massachusetts winter. And then once they actually got on the plane, there was more fun to be had, with Greg being deathly scared of flying on a plane for the first time. The book started to get stale once they actually got to the resort. I think there were some funny moments here and there, but there wasn't as much creativity throughout the book until the very end. I'm talking the last 15 pages or so. It's like the whole book was savoring all the shenanigans till the end, and once you get to it, it goes balls to the wall crazy. But everything leading up to it was pretty lackluster. The two things it did do in the grand scheme of our exploration is show some type of character growth for Susan, putting her in situations that the character usually would not be involved in, and her just going along with it. And the other is answering if the books are getting stale, something we'll have to discover more as the series goes along, but this might just be the start to that answer, so I guess we'll have to see. So my copy of book 16 came in the mail today, and I ordered a hardcover so, it can match with the rest of my collection, for aesthetic's sake. And well, it wasn't a hardcover when it showed up. I thought I was going crazy. I always triple check my orders and saw it was a hardcover, so I checked again, and sure enough, it did say it was a hardcover, clear as day. So I emailed the website that the order was not as described, and then I get an email back saying I can just send it back for a refund. I was like, cool, where's the shipping label? Then I looked down and it basically told me I had to pay for the shipping to go back, which meant I had to spend more money for this book I didn't want. So now I'm kind of stuck with it, which really sucks because it sticks out like a sore thumb on my bookshelf, and it's kind of embarrassing. I really hope I can get a hardcover version soon before anyone comes over and sees that. I don't need word going around on the street that I'm some kind of psychopath that has a paperback mixed in with hardcovers in a collection like this. That's the kind of thing that would ruin my reputation if I ever tried to start a book club someday. Anyways, book 13, also known as The Meltdown, was a damn good time. Here's the problem. It's pretty repetitive, not stale. Very big difference between the two. And what I mean by repetitive is not necessarily the individual story in this book, but just as a whole within the series. It simply just treads familiar aspects we've already seen before, and furthermore actually brings Greg's egotism back with a vengeance. He is such an in this book, almost the way he was in the first one, and I hated that. There's been so much growth for him, why undo all of that? Speaking of undo, the family pig that was introduced all the way back in book 9 straight up runs away, and it's a minor subplot throughout the book. The family lost him when they went on vacation in the last book. They left the pig with an animal caretaker, and the pig somehow opened its cage and made a run for it. The pig is not found by the end of the book, so I don't know what that was all about. I really don't know if Jeff was just trying to get rid of the pig, or if the pig will have a big comeback in a future installment, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. But when it comes to the actual story of this book, I rather enjoyed it a lot and had tons of laughs. On top of that, this is another extremely cohesive narrative. I think Jeff has been getting the hang of narrative structure a lot more within the last half of the series. But the plot of this one is that Greg's neighborhood is split into two sides, the Upper Hill Shirley kids and the Lower Hill Shirley kids. And they are at war with each other, and there's a lot of tension between the two sides, and the whole book is building up to this epic snowball fight that had me smiling from ear to ear. It was just true childhood imagination put forward, and I couldn't help but be happy while it unfolded. Overall, great book that doesn't have stale writing, but definitely is going backwards in some areas that I really wish it didn't. Wrecking Ball. Every time I think something is going into a direction I might not like, Jeff throws me into a loop and I get something great, and Wrecking Ball is spectacular. This book, in the simplest way put, is about the Heffleys getting a large sum of money from an inheritance, and Susan wants to use it to add an extension to the house. Things go wrong, and they end up deciding that they are going to sell their house and move out of town. But the book was building up to an emotional ending where Greg has to break the news to Rowley, and he is heartbroken. Of course, Greg is being a bit of an ass about it and tries to brush off Rowley's feelings, but then the Heffleys put together a going away party, and Rowley shows up and gives Greg a collage of a bunch of pictures pictures of them doing fun stuff, and then Greg starts to break down. Then of course so does Rally. And then after the party, some miscommunication on Susan's part leads to the movers showing up a week early, and they have to pack the whole house in under 2 hours. At the same time, this crane operator shows up to dispose of their hot tub that's in the back porch, so he has to extend the crane over the house to get it. When the crane operator starts pulling backwards, he has to come to a sudden stop because a nest full of wasps that have been living in Greg's house attack the operator, causing the hot tub to slip off the hook and drop straight through the roof and crash through each ceiling, now making the house unsellable. The buyers pulled out and the Heffleys have to stay there. Greg gets to stay with Rally, and it's all sort of a happy ending. There's some big additional character moments for Greg, and he isn't a total douche again. He's more in line of how he has been as of the previous books so far, and the writing is back on point with fresh ideas and strong narrative guidance. I've been pretty disappointed that I haven't been able to play as much guitar lately because I've been so busy with work. But you know, on the bright side, at least my literary game is still on point. Anyways, I finished book 16, which is called The Deep End, and another good one, but once again, a repetitive story, and yet it still felt refreshing in a way something like The Meltdown didn't, even though I thoroughly enjoy that one too. This book is another road trip book up to a point. Most of the narrative is focused on the Heffleys' stay at a trailer park resort, and it's pretty entertaining and sad to see how these people can't spend any good quality time with one another. In fact, the reason the book is called The Deep End is because after their house got all messed up in the last book, they have been living in their grandma's basement, and they haven't really left that area, and they're all jam-packed together. There isn't any space between them, and tension is so high that their mental sanity is about to go off the deep end. In fact, there's kind of a nice moment where all this craziness is driving Greg nuts, and he goes into a pool and goes to the deep end, because symbolism, and he sinks to the bottom so he can get some quiet, so he can take a break from everyone. And then of course that lasts like 5 seconds because a huge thunderstorm erupts and everyone starts panicking and trying to get cover. When Greg comes back up and out of the pool, he is the only one left in that area and is all confused on where everyone went, and he hears a loud lightning bolt and then a huge crack. It turns out that that bolt of lightning shattered a part of this bridge, and that was the only entrance in or out of this trailer park resort. So then everyone started riding, and it begins to get dangerous when other people start flipping over people's RVs. So Greg realizes they have to get out of there and remembers that there's a shallow part of the river that they can probably drive over and get out of there. But they want to be discreet. So they all get together and push their RV downhill, and then they all jump inside and Frank starts it up, but then they get stuck on some rocks, and then a huge flash flood comes sweeping up the RV, and then they're all surfing on the top of the RV going downstream. Greg sees the bridge is up ahead and then realizes that they're about to get decapitated. When they're about to make a jump for it, the RV drifts to the side and fits perfectly into the missing piece of the bridge because Manny got back into the RV and was steering it. Then when everyone saw the RV was gapping up the bridge, the whole trailer park fled and used the Heffleys' RV to get out of there, and they had to sit there and wait for everyone to go before they could leave. But because of this, the book ends on such a touching note. Basically everyone left and the Heffleys were the only ones who were there, and they got a good week to themselves as a family. And it turns out they actually got to have fun together, and it didn't feel corny. It actually felt deserved and had a good deal of weight and emotion behind it. Another emotionally resonant and satisfying ending from the mind of Jeff. 2 emotional endings in a row, man. Let's go. This book had some good character growth for the family unit as a whole, so that was nice. And even though it sort of reused the concept from book 9, it does enough differently and has more emotion and character aspects pushed in the front that makes it feel different. And this also closes another school year gap that started with book 10. Big shot. Damn, this is the second to last book, and I'm feeling a bit sad that there's only one more and this whole journey's over. It's been a fun ride so far, and honestly truly heartwarming to go back and not only revisit something from my childhood, but actually discover something new from it. before I get all sentimental on you, I should probably get into the book itself. And I gotta say, this book, book 16, is now the most cohesive narrative out of any of the books by a landslide. There is genuinely never a time when the book detours or focused on anything else besides sports and Greg's experience, or rather lack of experience with the subject. And for me, it was one of the more relatable books in the series, and I can tell Jeff was dying to tell this story. And this book made me so happy because this is the definition of what Diary of a Wimpy Kid books should be. It's about an underdog. It tells a creative narrative with everyday middle school situations. It explores what it's like to care or not care about something at that age. And most of all, it tells its story in an unpredictable way, usually parroting popular media. This one is about Greg attempting to be on the basketball team, and their team is a mess, and by the end of the season, they don't win a single game all season. So Greg's mom gets the whole team back together to go do a tournament that is for losing teams, and it's held by a closed down prison. And the main reason Greg's mom was having them do this is because when she was in middle school, she was on the basketball team that went to state finals and they lost. She never did end up getting over that moment in her life and is trying to relive her childhood through Greg and his team. So she ends up coaching them into this second chance tournament. And like I said earlier, the best books of this series do the unexpected. So near the end of the game, the opposing side had a player that got injured, so the team forfeited, but Susan says that she wants the team to win for real. So she convinces the other team to have a player from Greg's team sub for the opposing team. The coach of the opposing team agrees to it. And guess what Susan does? She sends them Greg. And Greg said, she sent me over there because she knew I sucked. Which honestly broke my heart, and it just shows once again that Susan only cares for her image and whatever makes her happy. Anyways, Greg ends up getting an anxiety attack because everyone is surrounding him when he has the ball. So he just chucks the ball behind him, making the final point and winning the game for the opposing team he was sent over to sub for. So that blew up in Susan's face. Greg gets a happy ending though, and he celebrates with the opposing team. This book was so damn good, and I'm happy that I'm on the second to last book and I'm still having a good time. Not much character development, it doubles down on Susan's ego and tells the most cohesive narrative in the whole series so far. I got caught up with the series a week ago and have been waiting for the release of the newest book, Diaper Overload. And I gotta say, I'm so happy I decided to do this. At first, I thought this would be stupid and pointless, but I gotta reconnect with something truly special from my childhood. I gotta be 10 all over again and go into this world. Sometimes it helped me forget about my problems and, well, sometimes it made me face them head on. For whatever reason, these books struck an emotional connection with us. And for me, it's the fact that our hero is flawed. I love how much I can relate to Greg, and I hate it all the same, because sometimes, maybe I feel like I have more in common with him than I'd like to admit. But for right now, the only thing on my mind is figuring out what happens next. And damn it, nothing is gonna stop me from finding out. Turns out they were all sold out, but I was able to order it off of Amazon. It's been a few days since I read Diaper Overload, and I've been tossing and turning about how I felt about it, and I didn't really like it. The plot was extremely cohesive and it was funny at times, but overall there was some choices that were interesting for sure. That being the fact that this book is actually a Roderick story, where Roderick is the main character. He's so much the main character that Greg is literally gone for like half the book. And now the plot is that Roderick and his band are trying to get a CD made and perform their music, but nothing is working out. But they do nothing in exploring Roderick as a character, and the book is just Roderick rules, but even more of a missed opportunity. This could have been the book where Roderick and Greg finally form some type of brotherly bond, or at least do something nice together. But instead, they decide to sideline the main character of the series, you know, the guy that's on the cover, and just tell a Roderick-focused story where you learn nothing new about the character. So, overall, wasn't the biggest fan of it, and there isn't enough story to really dissect and explain. Overall, it was just alright. Not bad, just okay. But now to the real How does this book relate to our questions? So with regard to Greg's growth in this book, the fact that he made an entire journal's worth of material on Roderick and sidelined himself shows that he is learning to be more interested and respectful of other people's lives beyond his own. So I see that as huge growth. The writing is a bit stale, although I'll give Jeff credit for trying something different, even if I wasn't the biggest fan of the decisions he made. This story isn't as mature as others, and no, Greg does not move on to high school in this one either. But now, looking at the series as a whole, this series did prove once and for all that Greg is not an actual sociopath. He was just extremely selfish. But he does grow, and he does care about people, but it seems like he is scared to show it. The books do dive into deeper plot lines and richer themes, and at times are not afraid to actually go for the emotions. And sometimes they are scared to. And out of all the 17 books I read, I only disliked 3-ish. So that's an incredible 82% approval rating for me personally. So no, the writing isn't stale, there's just a few bumps in the road, which is to be expected, but overall very consistent, and some books vary from good to great. And finally, for whatever stupid reason, Greg does not move on to high school. So there we have it. I guess it's over. We solved what we set out to do, and my heart feels heavy now. I already want to reread all of them. But I guess this is it. Well, I still have to edit the whole thing.
What?
You still have to edit this video. Oh. It's been almost a year since I set out on my journey, and between life and work, it's been damn near impossible to work on this project non-stop. But I did it. Now what the hell did I gain from this anyway, besides sleepless nights, stress, and anxiety? I guess after months of rereading sections of the books, editing Greg and his family over and over, re-examining the deeper meanings of this series, I can finally say I fully understand Greg. He's a complicated character through and through. But when you think about why he is the way he is, it's actually so simple. He is the byproduct of so many negative things. He is a person who is in deep pain and doesn't even know it. And he puts up this wall of egotism as a way of protection. He knows his family is obnoxious. He knows they aren't the most normal, but he doesn't understand that they are broken. That he is broken. You know why these books are more comedy than drama? Because Greg is a child who doesn't understand that his parents are verbally, mentally, and emotionally abusive. So his child mind is trying to comprehend it through other streams of emotion, through other streams of understanding. Why does this kid write 2 to 3 journals a year? He is suffering with not being able to express himself, and he has never been allowed to do so, so he writes in his books because that's the only way he can get his feelings out, because nobody fucking cares about him. This series is a genuine tragedy when you read between the lines, and Greg is a byproduct of neglect, and I think that's why we love him, whether we know it or not. We all have been rejected in our lives one way or another, and it's a feeling we can all relate to, and unfortunately this character has been rejected by the ones that, above all, are supposed to accept him. His family. So yeah, he acts like a jerk because he wants to have other people feel what he feels, to have control over someone or something because he has none. And you see that when he tries to do better for himself by trying new things and always coming up with some big idea. That is his way of trying to find a purpose to his life and become a better person. But there are his parents, ready to snuff out his dreams. This series is a cautionary tale for people, for parents, adults, for anyone, to know that your actions against people have consequences for that person. That by hurting one person can have a trickle effect, and that person can end up getting hurt so much that they hurt others. And then the cycle continues. So who is Greg Heffley? He's us. He is scared of failure because of the ridicule he'll get. He is the dreamer that wants to live a grand life. He is the hurt child who doesn't understand his emotions. He is a misunderstood creative mind, and he is scared of growing up and losing at life. But if we can learn anything from his experiences, it's to have faith in people and not close ourselves off to everyone. To keep trying at our goals even if others don't understand. To not let people hurt us so much that we reject our own talents. To spread kindness to those we love. To keep our friends close. And to not be scared of growth. But if you are, that's okay. Because we can just all be scared together.